Hello everyone. Thank you all for coming out on this beautiful night to gorgeous Thornden Park. As you can see, the park is being utilized by a lot of different people for a lot of different things, which is what we love to see. And one of the reasons that we always choose every year to have our meetings in park so that people can see one of the great assets and amenities to city living. Again, I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight. We have been very fortunate in the past year that there is a lot of very good news going on with the city of Syracuse. We have had unprecedented building, cranes in the air all throughout the city. We have 4 schools underway with our joint schools construction project, including H.W. Smith here on the east side. So we're moving forward with completing the first phase of the joint school construction board. We hope to, with our partners in the state, start a phase 2 of the joint school construction board. We have lots of construction going on downtown in particular and on University Hill of all sorts of varieties, both retail, residential, and commercial space. Our building permits and construction values are dwarfing what they were year to date last year, and last year was a record year for the city of Syracuse. We have been given lots of great awards from all sorts of different places about the great quality of life that we have in the city, the affordable housing that we have in the city, and we have been recognized from different governmental entities about our sustainability practices and our sustainability plans, and we continue to move forward in doing lots of innovative things with policy and procedures related to urban lifestyles and urban living. That's the good news. There's a lot of good news, but those are the high points of the good news. The bad news is that there is a fiscal crisis that is gripping this nation, and particularly cities, towns, and villages across the country and here in New York State. And I have been, for those of you who have been listening to me since I was elected mayor, I feel sorry for you, first of all, but you will know that I have been talking about this and beating this drum since just about January 2nd of 2010, because I saw this impending financial storm. And what we are now seeing is in August of 2012 that the rest of the state and the rest of the country is really coming to terms with and thinking about this very issue. And as our pension costs and our health care costs far outstrip our revenues and our ability to get new revenues, particularly the property tax cap, you're seeing people start to think about, well, what is the solution? And I can tell you that Syracuse will be part of that solution, but there needs to be a recognition on the part of the state and the federal government as well that they need to be a part of the solution as well. Because a number, if not all of the policies that have put into place these trends that are driving us towards this cliff have been drafted and implemented in Albany and also in Washington. By the way, by people of goodwill who had the best of intentions when they did this, yet I don't think they ever foresaw that you would have pension increases in the amount of 1,000%. So 10 years ago, pension costs were about $2 million. Next year, they'll be approximately $30 million, and there is no end in sight. I use as a backdrop to tell you when we increase property taxes, because the property tax cap, we can only increase taxes 2%. And because 50% of the property in the city of Syracuse is off the tax rolls, and because of the relatively speaking modest values of the property that is on the tax rolls, when we increase, if we were to increase property taxes by 2%, the amount that the city itself would receive is $600,000. So if you increase property taxes by $600,000, yet you have a pension bill that increases by $15 million, you can see that our ability to deal with those costs is really extraordinarily limited. Despite that, when you look at our revenues, our biggest revenues are state aid, which has been cut, but modestly cut, 2% every year. So we've been able to maintain some state aid, and with partners this year, we're able to get some one-shot spin-up that we were able to put in our fund balance to help us maintain our bond rating. We're one of the few municipalities in New York State that did maintain our bond rating. The second is property taxes. We've been doing what we can with property taxes. We have a very big push to move forward with our land bank and really address our vacant housing issue and our underutilized property. So we're moving forward with that. And of course, the last major category is sales tax. And in the first year of my administration, we were able, with the help of the county executive and some county legislators in leadership positions, to change the sales tax formula so that the city, for the first time in a very long time, received just about 25% of the sales tax. That has been a huge benefit to us. We have also moved forward with getting service agreements from those 50% of the properties that are off the tax rolls. We, of course, have had a service agreement with Syracuse University that we announced, and we're also under discussion with other nonprofits moving forward with that. So those are the revenue side. The liability side, the number of city employees that we have is the lowest it's ever been in modern history. We are relying a lot more on technology, we're relying a lot more on creativity, and also prioritizing as we move forward. But as we go into the grips of this financial storm, I can tell you that the way city government is right now will change in the next year, 18 months, 24 months, because we simply cannot sustain the kind of trends that we're going and end up in a good place. So as you hear me talk about that, as you read about me talk about it, that's what I'm talking about, and saying that you can't put this problem solely on the backs of the municipalities, whether it's Yonkers or Rochester or Syracuse, that we all need to be part of the solution. So we're working forward, working towards doing that with a number of our partners in different governments. So with that, let me open it up to people who have specific questions.
Just a point of clarification, I've never understood this. On the sales tax, you say we now get 25%. I guess we have roughly 40% of the population in the county. How much of the sales tax is actually generated within the boundaries of the city? Is it more than 25%? Presumably with the mall it is, but I don't know. I've never gotten a clear answer on that, so maybe you've got that information.
The question is, do we know how much of the sales tax in Onondaga County is generated within the boundaries of the city of Syracuse? And the reason that you've never gotten a straight answer on that is because they have never been able to figure out a way to collect the data to verify that. So we don't know the answer to that. That is an argument that others have made. To say that we should get more of it, but I think that the argument that really won the day, and the argument that ultimately I think makes sense to everybody, is the city of Syracuse is integral to the financial, the economic, the government, the religious, the cultural health of not just Onondaga County, but all of central New York. And so when you look at how much of the population of central New York, Onondaga County specifically, comes into the city of Syracuse to work, to play, to worship, to pay parking tickets, it's overwhelming. So I was in the county a lot, in Rotary clubs and wonderful places like DeWitt and Fayetteville and Manlius. There's nothing wrong with them. To say to them, look, if you go into Syracuse to see a basketball game or a football game, or Syracuse Stage, or to pay a parking ticket, or to go downtown to dinner, and God forbid you get hit by a car or you have chest pains, who shows up? It's the city police, it's the city fire department. When you drive on those roads, it's the city DPW that cleans those roads, that puts that salt on it. So this is important to your well-being as well as the city's well-being. And again, that argument really carried the day because we were able to show how many of the largest employers in Onondaga County are housed in the city of Syracuse. When you talk about economic development in Onondaga County and central New York, the real engines of economic development are EDS and MEDS. They're all located, primarily all located here on the Hill. They're generating great jobs. There's great economic development going on, but they don't pay property taxes. But is it in the best interest of everyone to have those institutions continue to create wealth and hire people and move forward? Absolutely. So again, we were able to use that to get just under 25% of the sales tax, and it has really been a buffer, if you will, for us. Now, I would be remiss, because my budget director here is here, and she would be angry with me if I didn't say the following. Sales tax revenue is the most unpredictable revenue to use in order to build a budget. So while we in Onondaga County have been very fortunate because we've seen a fairly steady uptick of our sales tax, other counties across New York State have not had that. And so it is really very subject to the cycle of our economic growth. So if we get out of this recession, we think it will grow, but if we go back into another recession, will it plummet too? So it's hard to budget recurring costs when you know that that revenue is so subject to things that you have no control over. Yes, sir. The question was, how come the roads in DeWitt are so beautiful and you come right over the line, for example, in Syracuse, and you got potholes and, you know, deep drop-offs?
We're helping pay DeWitt.
We are helping pay DeWitt. It's an argument that I make all the time. I say, look, I'm a county taxpayer. I pay for county sheriffs. I don't see them. So, you know, how is that fair? But let me address the road question first. The road question is that because of the way roads are financed, they are primarily, the lion's share of road construction work comes from New York State. And they are able, because in the towns and villages, they do not provide the kind of services that we provide. They are able to take more of that money over less area and continue to utilize those roads, and they don't have the kind of traffic that we do. But it is something that I have been having earnest discussions with the county executive and her team on. They are very open to that. I think certain county legislators are not. I'll be very candid with you. The county legislators say, don't take our money away from the county and bring it to the city. But we are moving, we're not doing that. What we're saying is, you know, there has to be some equity in how we do this. But part of the problem is that there are other governmental entities that finance government, and so we have to go to them too. Yes, Charlie.
As a homeowner and a native Syracusan, because we're in this state of affair that we're in with our economy, what can we do as homeowners to get ourselves as far as preventative maintenance? Because this, you know, we don't want a ship like the Titanic went down. So to avoid this and to foresee that you're seeing as homeowners, what role can we play in saving our city? Because, I mean, I love Syracuse. I was born and raised here. And I'm not going nowhere but at the cemetery.
And we hope you don't go there quickly, Charlie.
Well, what can we do?
I think exactly what you're doing now, coming out, talking, and saying that you care about your neighborhoods, you care about your city. But you need to talk to your state representatives and say, hey, you know what? You can't leave the city of Syracuse high and dry. The city of Syracuse and the city of Rochester and Yonkers and Rockland County and Suffolk County and Nassau County, and for that matter, Erie County and Buffalo, you know the one thing they all have in common? New York State. So you created this problem. You better be at the table helping solve it and having them there. And up until probably a month ago, I had state leaders who would turn their back on me. It was like I was talking to, you know, somebody who didn't understand, and they would kind of snicker behind their back and they say, oh, that's just Syracuse, you know. She's new, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Now all of a sudden we have 3 of the big 5 mayors all saying the same thing. Like, you can't, you have to have us be part of the solution, and there's got to be a solution. Because when you think about the services that local governments provide, and I always say this, particularly when there are state legislators and state officials around, I say, if you ask people, what service does your state government provide? You know, they'll kind of look around and say, well, you know what? We get our driver's license from the state. But when you say, and I know this as mayor, what service does the city provide? They will tell me, where my trash is picked up, when my road isn't plowed enough or fast enough, if I'm concerned about the water, whether the bike lane's painted, whether it needs to be painted again, whether there needs to be a stop sign on Euclid. My point is that when it comes to important services that impact your quality of life, it's the city. And so for the state to cause these problems and then turn its back and say, don't worry about it, the city's got to figure it out, that's going to be impacting a huge portion of our quality of lives. And you elect state officials and federal officials, and you need to say to them, don't turn your back. And say to them, look, you need to be a part of the solution, and be part of the problem, and continue to do what you're doing.
Behaviors by kids that break garage windows,
slash tires, all in that area. Now, I don't know, maybe it's other places too, but I live in 300 block of Tennessee Park Drive, and I have kind of three persons, so I run into people like they anytime mine, and they kill me. So it's a problem, and it's happened within the last, well, it's been a little more than a year. And we wonder if, so I will tell you that if those incidents of destructive behavior have not been reported to the police, you should always report those things to the police. The Deputy Chief Thompson is here, and you can talk to her, and I'm sure she will be up to speed on those issues. Let me just use this as an object lesson. There are times when I visit city neighborhoods and they say to me, you know, we've got these, let's just call it petty issues, destructive behavior, suspicious activity. The sooner that you talk to the police about that, the better off it is. Don't wait until it becomes outright burglary. And if you don't say something to the police, chances are we won't know about it. So you need to communicate that with us, because the more information is the biggest deterrent that we have for criminal behavior. So again, Deputy Chief Thompson is there.
Isn't it also important to have the neighbors talk to each other so everybody
Absolutely.
knows what's going on in their street?
Absolutely. It's very important to have the neighbors talk to each other and then talk to us about it. And not just with suspicious activity or behavior that you think is inappropriate, but also with things like, you know, I think that tree is overgrown from that stop sign or that pothole or all of those things. That, as our employment base has shrunk, we have less ability to have more eyes out in the street, so we depend on you to give us that information so that we can go and correct those problems or explain those problems. And that's why this year was one of our big initiatives, was to put onto our computer system so that you can sign in anytime, day or night, on the computer and alert us to a problem, and then follow it as we solve the problem or what we've done with that problem, so that you no longer have to fax or email or continue to follow up with us. That's one of the things that I talk about as we enter into this fiscal crisis. We cannot, as a city, afford to stop doing things either, because we will shrivel up. We have to choose priorities, and we have to be very smart about it. And one of the things that we've been very conscious about doing is using technology as our friend. And so we have made investments and spent money in technology. And there may be some who would say, well, why would you do that in a fiscal crisis? And I'll say, because you can't shrivel up and die. You got to make decisions, you got to make investments, and you have to move forward. You just have to be more precise about the decisions you make and the impact that they can have. Yes?
Just a question of the status of the airport, when it's going to become a county-wide airport?
The status of the airport. Last year this month, the governor signed the legislation that allowed the city of Syracuse to create an airport authority. Within a year, we have created an airport authority. They are up and functioning, and they have let a contract to privatize security at the airport, which will save us just under $3 million. That went live, if you will, on July 1st of this year. And now the airport authority members are negotiating and talking with, among others, city council members and other people about what should be in the operating agreement. Because eventually, sooner rather than later, there has to be an operating agreement between the city of Syracuse and the airport authority that will govern the terms and conditions of this transition. But it is functioning, and we are moving forward. With our airport, we are focused on the new construction project there that's going very well. Continuing to recruit low-cost airline services, which is continuing to go very well, particularly in light of the fact that we have said we're going to save $2.7 million, which automatically gets charged back to the airlines. Along with that, retain the airlines that we have here as well. We have been working on a major traffic plan that's going to be incorporates a bike plan and also going to be part of our comprehensive plan. We have started to look at traffic in a different way. than has been looked at before. So when we look at traffic and roads, we think about all kinds of people who utilize that. People who walk, people who use bikes, people who use cars. Beforehand, roads were just seen as exclusively for cars. And particularly in a city our size, I think we are doing a disservice to ourselves, because there are lots of people who walk because they either don't have a car or they don't have a driver's license, and they live in the city for the convenience of being able to get to places solely as a pedestrian. There are lots of people, believe it or not, who, even given our climate, bike all the time. We have seen exponential growth in the utilization of our bike paths, and it has been really, really exciting. It's kind of like that movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Where we have put bike racks, where before people said nobody ever bikes, all of a sudden you see 3 or 4 bike racks, and you see people utilizing these bike paths all the time. And so that's part of how we've been looking at traffic, thinking about it in a really comprehensive way, and we've been very successful in doing that. In terms of the synchronization of lights, that is that's an issue that will be a boogeyman for me probably till the day I die. So we can give you the answer that we've invested multi-millions of dollars over the last 20 years in the synchronization of lights. We have. Does anybody think that it's happened? No. Is anybody happy with it? No. But let me say this. You live in upstate New York in Syracuse. Just because you're behind one car doesn't mean it's a traffic jam, all right? It means that your expectations have to be perhaps not as high as they once were, and you know, that we're looking at it and we're thinking about it and we're utilizing our resources.
11 deer living in my backyard. Because of the Lyme disease, because of the traffic issue that they do create, plus the destruction they do in everyone's front yard, what is it we can do?
I've been talking to the DEC about it. We're trying to move forward with that. But it is one of these problems that nobody expected, and as a consequence of nobody expecting it, there are no initiatives or programs used to combat unwanted deer on the east side of the city. I know it's an issue. I know it's a problem. I live here, and I tell people when they, you know, come over that watch, because you'll see deer and people laugh at me until they see them. You know, when you see one, you know there's like 6 others around. So I know. I understand. That's why we're talking to the DEC about it. Again, we are not going anywhere. I want to thank you all for being here tonight on this beautiful night. We'll be around, so please feel free to come up and ask me questions. The Commissioner of Parks is here. The Commissioner of DPW is here. So thank you all very much. Have a good night.